So Rent. Well, Rent, first of all, is a labor of love. I first had the opportunity to see the national tour of Rent in Boston in 1995 with my mom sitting in the front row because I had gotten lottery tickets. It was actually the first Broadway show that the producers wanted people to see who couldn't really afford the show. So there was a lottery every night for 22 tickets, and they were all in the front row. And if you came to the theater 2 hours beforehand and you put your name in a bin, and your name was picked, you'd get 1 or 2 tickets for $25. And that's how I saw Rent the first time. It was lovely. I remember my mom, the first thing that she did when the show started was took her hearing aids out because they were just amplifying the music so loud because we were in the front row. So Rent is really, and I don't want this to scare anybody off because once you say opera, people get scared. They're like, no, I can't understand it. Rent is really an adaptation of the opera La Bohème. It's a story of love, of disease, of art, of artists, of singers, of dancers, of filmmakers, of people who are living in New York striving so hard to be an artist without maybe a luxurious lifestyle. Maybe they live, and our artists that we see live in just one loft of a warehouse. They live on a floor of a warehouse, and a section is a kitchen, and a section is a bedroom, and a section is a living room. But it's a really communal atmosphere that really feeds artist off of artist off of artist, and that's how we get the relationships that we get. I think one of the best things about living in New York is that not many people that live in New York are from New York. So what happens is your friends become your family, and I explained to the cast that often their friends become closer than the family because you can pick your friends. So not necessarily saying that families are bad, but sometimes families aren't the greatest situation. So you really kind of get what you need in your life from your friends. And that's what happens in this story. We have lots of love stories between Angel and Tom Collins, between Benny and Allison, whom we never meet, but also Benny, and we find out that Benny and Mimi had a past. We have a love story between Mimi and Roger, and we have Mark, who's kind of the lone wolf in this, but he had a relationship with Maureen, who is now with Joanne, which we find out in the very beginning of the play. There's a couple of iconic songs in the piece, and one of them, of course, being the beginning of the second act called Seasons of Love, which is a beautiful, beautiful piece about what happens on a minute-to-minute basis in the span of 1 year. And the play actually takes place in the span of a year, and that's what the 525,600 minutes means. That's how many minutes are in a year, and the changes that we go through an entire year. So we see we start out on December 24th, and we go through New Year's Eve, through summer, through fall, through Halloween, and back to December 24th at the end of the play, and we see the progression of what happens. People getting together, breaking up, people dying, people living, people facing addiction, people fighting addiction, all done in a rock and roll pop genre that is really brilliantly put together. It doesn't seem like you're watching an opera at all, or you're hearing an opera at all, because you get so wrapped up in the storyline. There are themes that some people in Mankato might not love, but as a director, I feel like it's my job not to throw things in people's faces. What I've done in this is I've addressed the topic and then moved on to another storyline, and addressed this topic and moved on to another storyline. There is a female-female relationship, and there's a male-male relationship. There's a bunch of male-female relationships in the piece, but it's really about artists and how artists live. Speaking about my mom that I talked about at the end of the first act when we saw the show, she said, I said to her, well, Mom, what do you think? And she thought about it for a second, and she was in her 70s at the time, and she said, well, does your best friend in New York live like that? And I said, no, Mom, he's great. He's got a really beautiful apartment with his own bedroom, and yes, that he lives alone, so he does very well. But it's a lovely story. We actually have been waiting to do this story for 2 years. We were going to do this story last year in the fall slot, and what happened was we ended up getting the rights to Chicago, which we had been waiting 4 years to get the rights to, and we decided to wait on Rent and put it in there. One of the things that has been the best about this, and one of the things that I'm finding that I love about the directing and the choreography of any piece, is the research. And one of the things I've done in the research is I traveled to New York twice because Mark is a filmmaker throughout the piece. And what I've done is I have created film footage actually from New York that you will see at the end of the piece that Mark supposedly is filming throughout the play. That's really, really cool. And what I've done is at the end, I've incorporated footage of the current cast members that I've found locations in Mankato that simulate a New York type atmosphere location, and I've inserted those into the film. So you will see real footage of New York, and you'll see real footage of the cast members spliced together so that it makes one continuous film at the end of the piece. I've also done something really which I love, which I really hope happens, which is another film at the end of the piece during the curtain call that you will see that hopefully when you see it you'll say, oh, that's what that is. But I got the great opportunity to, when I was there in New York in the winter, it wasn't very snowy when I first got there, so I got kind of fall-like footage, and then it snowed when I got there, so I got some fresh snow footage, which made a very winter-like atmosphere. One of my favorite pieces of footage, and I don't know if it will be used, is that I was in an outdoor market bazaar type place, and I was pulling record albums from the 80s, because the play takes place in 1989, filming, and I was chased out of there. The guy says, what are you filming that for? And I was like, sorry, and I ran, and you can see me running with the camera, which is kind of funny. Lots of pieces of New York graffiti, and some of my favorite footage was taken this summer when I walked the Brooklyn Bridge from Tribeca all the way to Brooklyn, and I filmed it the entire time. And I zoomed out and zoomed in on the Statue of Liberty and things like that. When you look down, you can see the cars on the Brooklyn Bridge. This is the walkway over it, it was a absolutely beautiful day. There was tons of people, and I got some really great footage for that. The cast is really incredible. There are grad students, there are freshmen, there are people who aren't even in the major. There are dancers, so it's a really eclectic cast. The play itself only calls for 15 cast members. I had 90 people audition. It was an amazing turnout. The biggest I've had here for one single show at MSU in my 8th year here, and I ended up casting 24 because I wanted more people to have the opportunity. We had so much talent, and the audition was not easy. It wasn't your traditional musical theater audition. The requirements of the audition were to sing 16 bars of a pop or rock song from the 60s, 70s, or 80s, and I got some stunning auditions, and I was very, very happy with what I got. And the casting process was not easy in any way, shape, or form. It was amazing. I can't wait to bring this piece to the audience at Minnesota State University in Mankato. I really feel like the cast is going to be so proud of the work that they're doing, and I'm taking a different directorial approach with the piece because there are subjects that are very delicate to approach. One of them being an AIDS storyline, and in 1989 we were at kind of a precipice in AIDS research where we were in the cocktail phase of AIDS drugs and HIV drugs, where people had to take a multitude of drugs in different successions. So you take five drugs at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and 4 drugs at 4 in the afternoon. And they were called cocktails that you would take with water. And it was a very experimental time. I have a lot of personal connection with what this story says. I actually have 2 roommates who were diagnosed with HIV in 1992 at the same time. One of them passed away in 1998, and the other is there is no HIV evidence in his body of any HIV cells. And he's got an amazing, incredible body with a six-pack and chest and abs and everything you could imagine. But they went to the same doctors, took the same medications. And I feel like in 1989, when this was going on, it was the experimental time. Because 1981, 82, 83 is when we started to hear about this AIDS, this gay cancer, this whatever it was that nobody really quite knew. And yes, we've made significant advances in all this research. Yes, there's still more to do, as with breast cancer, as with ovarian cancer, as with prostate cancer, all of those things. There's so much more to do. We're in a great time where we can use the technology that we have and the creative scientific minds that we have, but we still have more work to do. And this piece is an homage to the people who are affected by this disease and what it brings to them. We're working on diligently a raffle so that the prizes that the people would win who buy the tickets would be signed posters of Rent from the Broadway casts, signed hats from Rent, things like that. And this is all through Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, which is a huge organization that was started in the mid '80s, early '90s, to help people living with AIDS, affected by AIDS, things that they run daycare care centers for people who have AIDS, so that their children go to daycare so that they can go to work, things like that. And I've been involved in organizations like this and Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS since the mid-'80s. It's a really unbelievable cause, and all of the proceeds from this raffle will go to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And if we can even make $500 to give to them within the 2 weekends, we want to make more than that, but even if we can make $500, this would be a huge gift for that organization, which does amazing work and takes no profit. It's a completely non-profit organization. Everything goes to the people affected by this disease. So this has been Associate Professor Paul Finocchiaro and the director choreographer of Rent, which is happening in the Ted Paul Theater September 29th to October 9th. And you can get tickets by calling 389-6661, or you can go to our website, which is msutheater.com. And we hope to see you at the play. We want everybody who's within this tape, this video, this clip, to check it out. You will have an amazing time, and you'll see some incredible singing, incredible dancing, and an amazing storyline that I think will really resonate with anybody who has ever known anybody who's died of any disease, anybody who's known any artist, and anybody who's had a bad day, and how they come out of it. Thanks.